Stargirl is a television show created by comic book writer Jeff Johns. Its first season premiered simultaneously on DC Universe and the CW. DC Universe's DC streaming service, probably soon to be deceased, it was meant to be a home for classic DC television and film, an extensive comic book library, and new original shows. Stargirl was announced as part of the service's lineup, which also included Titans, Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing, and Harley Quinn. The character Stargirl, also known as Courtney Whitmore, was created by Johns and Lee Mulder. She was based on Johns' sister, Courtney, who passed away in 1996. The character premiered in 1999. The show takes place on Earth 2. DC deals a lot with alternate timelines. In the comics, Earth 2 was originally meant to be home for the Golden Age version of characters. The Golden Age refers to the original set of comic books that started with Action Comics number 1 in 1938. In the 1950s through the 1960s, DC reinvented their line of comics, starting with the introduction of Barry Allen in 1954. This new version of The Flash kick-started the Silver Age. The Golden Age versions were moved to Earth 2, where their stories could continue and sometimes cross over with the reinvented Earth 1 heroes. Another part of the change was DC's flagship team. The original version was the Justice Society of America. That became the Justice League of America during the Silver Age. Both the show and the comics it's based on are a tribute to the Golden Age heroes. By taking place on Earth 2, the show is able to exist outside of time to a degree. Also, it's Earth 2 relative to the other DC shows, such as The Flash. The show is somewhat stylized. It feels both old-fashioned and modern by combining modern teenage problems with an apple pie Americana setting. The show starts with the death of Starman and the Justice Society at the hands of the Injustice Society, a team of villains. Starman's sidekick, Stripesy, is the only survivor. A decade or so later, Pat has married Courtney's mom, Barbara. Courtney's dad disappeared when she was young. The three of them, along with Pat's son, Mike, moved to Blue Valley, Nebraska. Courtney finds Starman's staff and it chooses her to be the next hero. It will only work for her. This leads Courtney to believe that she is Starman's daughter. She takes on the mantle of Stargirl and, along with Pat in a giant robot mech suit called Stripe, begins recruiting a new Justice Society to avenge the original team's death and stop the ISA who are operating in Blue Valley. Courtney is a great lead character. Brec Bassinger gives a great performance throughout the season. A lot of her story focuses on acceptance, both of herself and her new family and friends. Courtney has a lot of baggage and abandonment issues. Her entire superhero persona is built around the great guy she believes her father to be, which obviously comes to a head when she meets her actual dad, who is not Starman. He was just some a-hole that left her. That shatters Courtney's entire sense of self. She's so focused on the family that left her that she doesn't see the family in front of her. I also like how cocky she is. She really doesn't have that much more experience as a superhero than the other JSA members. But because she was technically first, the others kind of look to her, and that goes to her head a little bit. Courtney and Pat's relationship is really sweet. The moment in the finale where she finally refers to herself as Pat's daughter, among many other moments, is one of the show's best scenes. And of course the mug. I love the mug. These dynamics really resonated with me. I love how character-driven the show is. It's to the point that there's an entire episode, I think episode 11, where there's no action. No one ever gets in a costume, and there are no fight scenes. And it's still just as engaging as anything else. Very few superhero shows, if any, could pull something like that off. But this show manages to because the characters are so rich and engaging that I don't really need any of that other extravagance. But speaking of the action, it's incredible. One of the big issues with getting as many live-action superhero adaptations as we have been is that it can all start to feel a little samey, especially in the big action scenes. Like, there's a strong dude, and then there's another strong dude, and they're just going to punch each other until one or both falls over. It gets old. The Cosmic Staff is a really unique weapon, and the stunt team on this show crafted these really captivating fights with interesting moves. The staff gave them an opportunity to do something that no other show or movie could. Stargirl is the only place to really see action like this. It's stylized and over the top, but just the right amount without breaking the suspension of disbelief. The supporting cast is great. I already talked about Pat a little bit, but Luke Wilson's really good in this show. He has a natural chemistry with everyone that's really endearing. My favorite member of the JSA is Yolanda, aka Wildcat. Her introductory episode is the one that really made me fall in love with the show. I really liked the first two episodes, but that third one is the one that hooked me. Yolanda's backstory is that her boyfriend, Henry, asked for nudes and then leaked them to the entire school. It ruined her reputation at school and her relationship with her family. And of course, no one is mad at the guy that leaked the pictures, as is often the case in the real world. No, everyone is super judgmental of her. The last scene with her parents is really heartbreaking. As an audience member, you'd think that once she finally kind of confronts them, maybe they'll relent and at least somewhat forgive her, or at least show her any kind of sympathy or understanding. And instead, they double down on their judgment, and it's brutal. However, Yolanda's parents are pretty much dropped after that. They never show up or are really mentioned again. And the same thing happens with Rick and Beth, who are Hourman and Dr. Midnight, respectively. They're both given really interesting home lives and backstories that really don't factor into the show after their character-specific episodes. It's a big show with a lot of characters, and it's already been renewed for a second season, so I'm sure all of these things will get more development in the future. And the show is called Stargirl, not Justice Society, so it's not a big deal. I do have another complaint about Yolanda in the finale. So, Hourman's thing is that his parents were original members of the JSA. They were killed by Solomon Grundy. So Rick joined the team specifically for revenge. He wants to kill Solomon Grundy. In the finale, Yolanda and Rick get into an argument about whether it's wrong to kill, with Yolanda taking the stance that it is inherently wrong to kill someone and Rick shouldn't do it. The payoff to this is that Rick spares Grundy, but Yolanda kills Brainwave. And I love that. My issue with Superman killing General Zod in Man of Steel isn't that he does it, but that it isn't set up at all. It's clearly supposed to be shocking, like, OMG, Superman is super against killing. But that's never established in that movie. I don't know how Clark feels, and he's over it within a day anyway. In contrast, there's a lot of story potential with Yolanda killing when she's so against it. My problem is that it comes too late. The debate between the two should have happened in an earlier episode. It plays like Yolanda is only against killing in the finale because it'll be more dramatic when she does it. It doesn't feel like a natural part of her character that was set up. And if anything, the opposite is true. In an earlier episode, Yolanda confronts Henry, who is Brainwave's son, so he also has psychic powers like his father, and she threatens to kill him. And Henry, with his powers, confirms that she 100% means it. And then the episode after that, Courtney and Yolanda are in Dragonlayer's base and finding his henchmen, and they're just like slitting throats left and right. Like there's CGI blood and everything. So I guess Yolanda wasn't against killing those guys. Maybe it's Arrow logic. Henchmen don't count. We should talk about the villains. A huge missed opportunity of a lot of superhero movies is that we haven't had a proper supervillain team. With the superhero teams, they typically just have to fight a boring, overpowered guy like Thanos. Or there's a giant, ugly-looking CGI army, or both. Because they don't know what to do with a huge number of powerful heroes. With the supervillain team, the action will be better because the creator's going to have more fun with different superpower pairings. And you can have a lot more fun with character dynamics. You can have really silly, over-the-top villains, as well as ones that are more nuanced. Icicle/Jordan is the leader of the ISA and the main bad guy of the show. And he is great. I love him. He's such a good villain. He reminds me a lot of Malcolm Merlyn from Arrow's first season, which was their best villain. Jordan's wife died, and it gave him a pessimistic view of the world. And once his plan is revealed, it's fascinating. Basically, Dragon King built a Cerebro that Brainwave will use to brainwash a section of America. But the aim is to make them better people. Under what Jordan calls New America, they plan to have universal health care, eliminate all kinds of discrimination, and generally make a better country. But they had to take away free will to do it, which is already morally wrong. But it will also kill millions of people. Jordan views it as an ends justify the means kind of thing. He has a great line where he tells Barbara the number of people that die from cancer each year. And by killing that same number just one time, he could potentially cure cancer forever. It's evil, but it's so compelling. Brainwave's great too. The whole idea behind him is how awful it would be to be psychic. If you had to hear what every person thought all the time, it would make you hate humanity. And he already seemed like someone that was antisocial with a lot of resentment. Think about every thought you've ever had. They're not all good thoughts. It doesn't make you a bad person, but if someone had to hear them all day, every day, it would drive them insane. And Brainwave is vicious, like kill your own wife and child vicious. Cindy, or Shiv, is also great. She's the high school mean girl, which felt a little typical at first, but that's okay. It's a high school show, there's gonna be a mean girl. And she ends up being so much more complex. She's Dragon King's daughter, and Dragon King is amazing. He's this weird lizard dude that is the only member of the ISA to fully embrace his supervillainy. Every other member of the ISA has like a secret identity and a life outside of being a supervillain, except for him. He's always in his secret lair, and he's always wearing his costume, no matter what. Imagine that being your dad. Cindy's forced to live with a stepmother that's clearly a woman that is held there against her own will. It's a beautifully bizarre dynamic. But then there's an episode where Cindy starts to kind of connect with Courtney a little bit, and you see that there might be a good person there, buried.
Deep beneath the snow.
Wait, why didn't I use that for icicle? Cindy gets pushed a little too far and it kind of cements her into villainy. But there's still this potential that she could be redeemed. It gives her this kind of unpredictability. She could easily be this show's Kylo Ren. Sportsmaster and Tigress are worth mentioning because they're the best. They're so funny. Those two actors are having the best time. I wish I could have as much fun as those two do when they're beating up teenagers. I also love their daughter, who's this super aggressive, overly violent quarterback jock. She's hilarious, and their whole family dynamic is weirdly charming. Like, they would literally murder for their daughter. That's kind of sweet. So I love this show. It's everything I love about DC. There's an interesting and unique setting, rich and engaging characters, stylized action, and most importantly, heart. This show obviously means everything to Johns. And that level of sincerity is harder and harder to come by.